Hey everybody, welcome back to the trailer park. It's been a hot minute since we've posted any videos, and that's because we've been just so incredibly busy with our business that we have not had any time to get back here and do any work on any of the campers. We have had to make some decisions. The CalCraft we had hoped to have done, well, last spring, and then it was last summer, and then, oh, well, by the fall. Well, there it is. It's not done yet. So our plan with the 1961 Aljo, which has our photo booth in it, was always to use this year to tear it down, rebuild it, make it a little nicer, make it a little more suitable as a photo booth, now that we have the hindsight of having done this for several years, and have that ready to go out again by the fall. So it's time to pivot from working on this to working on this. I hope you're interested in seeing another camper rebuild, because that's what I'm going to be doing. And if you're interested in how you rebuild one of these to be, a photo booth, or if you're interested in building one of these to be, sometimes they're called a kiosk camper, maybe this hopefully not too long series of videos will be useful to you. And I can also show you some of what happens when you buy one of these campers that's been rebuilt by someone that, you know, maybe did a nice job, but maybe didn't exactly know what they were doing. Because we definitely did do some things that I would do differently and am going to do differently. But, you know, it is a learning process. So if you've never done one of these before, don't think you're going to do it perfect the first time, or the second time, or maybe even the third time. Regardless, I'm going to get to work because I'm wasting daylight. It's going to get dark. Fortunately, it's nice weather out here. But yeah, the weather is nice. Okay, so with everything moved around back here, I'm going to go ahead and untarp this and clean it out. Still got a bunch of our photo booth stuff in it. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are the reason why we need to address rebuilding this. Okay, so that's pretty much all the loose stuff in there, so let me show you what we're working with. Okay, so it's pretty empty in here now, as you can probably hear from the echo in my voice. And you know, on first, glance, it seems kind of dirty and dusty, but it doesn't really seem like it's in too bad a shape. But the floor is definitely garbage. We use those peel and stick vinyl tiles, and they have they did the job, but the finishes come off of them and they've started to shrink and come up off the floor. So that's always been kind of an eyesore to me, or at least it's been an eyesore to me for the last little while, and so I'm definitely looking forward to correcting that. Also, this big stupid window behind us is obviously not an RV window. We went to a place locally that said, oh yeah, we can do that. And I think they built us a storm window. And, I was on a deadline to get this finished, so I just had to make it work, which I did. And it's been okay. They put the weep holes for the window on the wrong side. And additionally, it was supposed to fit into the opening. And the way they designed it, it was going to fit out. It was like we took it in there and told them what we wanted, and they didn't listen to anything that I told them. So this is the end that has a lot of the problems. We've had water come in around the window because it's not the right thing, and we've had water seep in through the skin, I think. We're going to find out when we open this up where it's really coming from, I think. We did get another camper window because when we got this wasn't here at all, and I think I can make it work. So we're going to try to rehab that one and frame this up to fit this other window. Overall in here, there's not a lot that needs to be changed. It works fine as a photo booth, but there are a few things I would like to change to make it look a little cleaner and to make it just slightly easier to set up. So when you get to this step, it's take all the fixtures off, all the trim pieces, take the windows out, door off, all these little things have to come off this so before you can actually take that skin off and take a look at it. So luckily, I got a new set of drills for Christmas, so we'll be putting those to use. This one especially. One thing that I always recommend is to have a little bucket you can just take all the screws and drop them into. There we go. So if you're careful taking your J-rail off, you can probably reuse it. I didn't bend mine up too bad taking it off, but I wish I would have never painted it in the first place. So I may just get replacement J-rail for it anyway. But you've also got to get all the butyl tape that's still stuck to your camper off so you can see all the little staples or nails that are holding the skin together and pull every one of those out before you can take the skin off. So that's next. Okay, so once you've got all the butyl tape stripped off of your sheet metal so that you can see where the nails or staples are, you can go ahead and pull those out, and then this skin should more or less be free. One thing I should probably say about this process, most of the time you would be taking off this, the roof skin, the outer wrap, you'd be taking that off first, and then you'd take the skin off of the walls. I'm taking the skin off the walls first so that I can then take my measurements, and I find these 5-in-1 paint scrapers work pretty well for this. Whew, piece of cake. Well, it's a good thing I'm replacing this top skin. A lot of these are just pulling through. This can be time consuming. Oh man, I thought I had this. You always miss one. There we go. Woo doggies. Okay, so that was actually a little harder than I thought. And if I had to say whether I prefer nails or staples, it's definitely staples, because you can hook under those and pop them out. Nails are a little trickier. So in the future, we'll definitely be putting these back together using staples. There's one. Maybe I should take the top skin off first. Man, this is hard. If I was in the market for it right now, Yeah, because I would like to have one. I got other things going on, right? Thanks for asking. Okay, so there you have it. This side is off. You can see the sort of multicolored insulation that we used originally because we were just using scrap stuff that we had left over from various house projects. You know, where this is going to be a photo booth, I'm kind of questioning whether I'm even going to put insulation back in it because you have to have the door open all the time. Regardless, I think I'm going to pull that out now so I can really see the walls. I can also see some things I need to explain. So I feel like you can probably see a few things just looking at it straight on. And perhaps the thing that stands out to me the most is this bottom is not a nice straight line. It sort of dips, and the back sort of at an angle too. Part of that might be in how we built it, and part of that might be just from people constantly stepping into it. You know, if you have 10 fully grown adults jumping in there to take photos, that's going to put a lot of pressure on this little spot. And this is one of the areas that I definitely want to reinforce when I rebuild this. And I'm considering having my welder put a little extra reinforcement on that edge just to make sure that it can support the weight of everybody jumping in there. So I feel like one thing I should, explain about the way this camper is built on the inside, which, yes, we did a full rebuild of this in 2017, I think it was. And this was the second camper we did. So we were armed with a little bit of knowledge about campers and a lot of knowledge about how to work on houses. And so we made some educated guesses about how we should approach rebuilding this, but the number one first mistake that we made was we thought, don't take the skins off. There's no way you'll get it all lined up when you go to put it back, and that'll be so much work, so hard to do. And that was sort of the basis on which every other mistake we made was founded. But we were doing the best we could. We did a good job in spite of, But the reason why that's a major error is because trying to piecemeal things together from the inside leaves you with a much weaker overall structure. And the way the roof goes on, it actually needs to overlap those walls and be tacked down from the top. And there's no way to do that unless you take the top off. If you take the top off, you might as well take the sides off. And it's kind of just do it all. You'll be much happier with the final result. And it'll be much safer ultimately. I wouldn't necessarily say this was unsafe. It is definitely strong. It survived a near miss with a tornado that tried to shove it down a hill, and I don't know, 70-mile-an-hour winds or something like that. So, granted, you experience 70-mile-an-hour winds if you're towing down the highway. But you can see some things like this little area right here we pieced together with several 2x4s. And keep in mind, this was all pretty much rotted away when we worked on this. So we didn't have much to go from. But this piece here should probably be just one continuous piece, and then the verticals should run off of it. So I'll probably change that in the design. But you have to have this piece here going all the way back so that you have something to tack your top sheet metal to where it comes down and has that seam. There's no way to build this top curve from the inside. This has to be built from the outside. Probably with your walls off. So that was completely rotted away when we originally got this. And to replace it, we cut a curve that we thought was pretty close to it out of a sheet of plywood and put that in there. And then we tacked onto that so that we could tack the ceiling joists in from the inside. All of this, so much simpler just building this with the skins off, and then add your ceiling panel and your joists together on top of that. So I'm going to be doing it that way. The other big problem, I think this is a big problem. If you buy a camper that someone else has renovated, if they didn't renovate it to very similar standards of how it was originally corrected, you've lost a lot of the instructions for how to do this. So I'm going to have to kind of make this up, make some changes to it as I rebuild it, and that's going to be massively helped out by having a three-dimensional model. So I'll be doing that in SketchUp again. Oh, one other mistake we made. You can maybe spot it in the video. A lot of that wood is pressure-treated lumber, and you do not want to use that on your camper rebuild. For one, it releases toxic gases as it dries out, which you don't want. Two, as it dries out, it changes shape. Three, it will corrode the metal that is in contact with it. So all your fasteners, your nails and screws you stick in there, unless you have the kind of ceramic coated ones, will eventually corrode away. It will also corrode away the aluminum, I'm told. Just use regular construction grade, plywood, pine or Douglas fir 2x4s, cut them down and make it. Also, you don't need full 2x4s in most of this. So, okay, I'm yak, so I don't have to move on with this project, but I should get my clipboard and my tape measure and start making some notes. So if you haven't seen one of my previous videos where I talk about measuring one of these campers to rebuild it, you want to pay attention to the thickness of studs, the spacing between them, and the length of the studs. Most campers will only use a few different thicknesses of material, so once you've figured that out, really all you're doing is measuring spacing and length. And I like to start with an area where I can get a measurement that I can sort of expand and work from, and usually that's the wheel well and maybe like the bottom plate. Okay, so got my diagram. It's a little less detailed than I usually do on a camper, but because I know I'm making changes to this design, I've more or less just tried to note the things that I need for the overall dimensions and locations of like the windows and hatch and stuff like that. This always gets to be a little bit trickier when you're trying to reuse skin, which I'm trying to reuse the side skins, because you have to get the wall the same size as those skins. So you don't want to be too off and make too many changes from what was originally there and suddenly find you're an inch off in some area. That definitely won't work. There is some room for a little bit of wiggle when you're building up that outside radius. When you're building the final curbing on there, you can add more in some places or use a belt sander to take away in places where you maybe have too much, but you still need to kind of get those two walls matched up more or less the same size. So you may wind up, having to trim some sheet metal or something. Anyway, I'm going to take this and start working on my SketchUp and get the design for this wall done before I move on to the next one. Work in sections so you can keep things manageable. If you're not familiar with what SketchUp is, it is a 3D modeling program that has a free version that's available through your browser, and it's one of the easier ones to use, at least in my experience. If you're interested in watching a live that I did a few months back where I kind of showed how I used it and sort of gave everybody an introduction to, let's call it SketchUp for camper rebuilding, we'll put the link below the video and you can go and check that out, and feel free to ask any questions and I will try to answer them. Alright, well, there's the drawing, there's the SketchUp. This is just kind of basically what I took from the measurements on the actual camper, and now I'm going to have to start refining some of this and making sure that the dimensions are all correct, and I'm going to have to take some additional measurements on this curve in some spots to make sure that I get it drawn in correctly again. So next time I'll move on to the other side, I guess. Get that into SketchUp and start getting the planning done for rebuilding this thing. Thanks for watching. Please make sure and like and subscribe and leave a comment below. Let me know what sort of content you might like to see from us going forward on this rebuild. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one.